The day the galaxy froze in fear. The galaxy was alive with chaos. Emergency broadcasts buzzed across star systems, each one more desperate than the last. A shadow, vast and unrelenting, moved across the stars, consuming everything in its path. They called it the Void Stalker. No one knew where it came from or what it wanted, but its presence meant one thing: destruction. Entire fleets were obliterated. Defenses that had stood for centuries crumbled in moments. Planets once teeming with life became silent, dark graves. The galaxy's most advanced species, the Zrathians, known for their massive fleets, the Valorians, famed for their unmatched intelligence, and the Kryn, the galaxy's strongest warriors, did the unthinkable. They retreated. A message, broadcasted on every frequency, carried the same chilling warning. The Void Stalker cannot be stopped. Flee if you value your lives. Across the stars, civilizations fell silent. The fear was like a disease, spreading faster than light itself. But on Earth, the reaction was different. Humanity had heard the warning. On screens across Earth, the galactic leader's panic was displayed for all to see. Some humans were concerned, of course. The footage of entire fleets vanishing into nothingness was horrifying. But panic? No, that wasn't humanity's way. In a sleek, high-tech command center aboard the United Nations Starship Command, UNSC, Vanguard, Captain Ava Reyes watched the galactic broadcast with her crew. They sat silently as alien leaders begged their people to run. The room was tense, but not with fear. There was something else. Curiosity. Determination. Ava's first officer, Lieutenant Marcus Kim, finally broke the silence. "So, we're just supposed to run like scared rats." His voice was laced with sarcasm. Ava smirked, her hazel eyes sharp and unwavering. "Doesn't sound like us, does it?" The room chuckled nervously. Humanity had faced extinction before. Wars, climate collapse, asteroids. Every time, they had survived, clawing their way forward with grit and stubbornness. Ava wasn't about to let some mysterious threat scare them into submission. "Get me a connection to Fleet Command," she ordered. Within minutes, a holographic figure of Admiral Zara Patel appeared in the center of the room. Zara was a no-nonsense leader, her expression as hard as the steel walls around her. "What's the situation, Captain Reyes?" Zara asked. Ava gestured toward the screen. "This Void Stalker, it's tearing through the galaxy. But running isn't going to help us. We need to understand it. Fight it, if necessary." Admiral Patel raised an eyebrow. "Every other species is retreating. They think it's unstoppable." Ava leaned forward. "Then let them run. Humanity doesn't give up without a fight." Zara studied Ava for a moment before nodding. "You have authorization to investigate. Be careful, Captain. If this thing is as dangerous as they say." Ava's voice was steady. "Understood, Admiral. We'll find out what we're dealing with." The Vanguard was a state-of-the-art exploration vessel, equipped with advanced sensors, cloaking technology, and enough firepower to hold its own in a fight. As it left Earth's orbit, its crew prepared for the unknown. For days, the ship traveled through the dark expanse of space, following the faint trails left by the Void Stalker. The deeper they went, the quieter the galaxy became. Distress signals from destroyed ships faded into eerie silence. Finally, they stumbled upon the remnants of an alien fleet. Massive ships, once symbols of power and technology, now floated aimlessly, their hulls scorched and broken. The crew of the Vanguard stared in awe and horror at the destruction. Ava ordered a boarding team to investigate the largest wreck. As they entered the alien ship, they were met with scenes of chaos. Control panels shattered, corridors filled with scorch marks, and strange alien blood splattered across the walls. In the command room, they found a recording device still intact. Ava activated it. A hologram flickered to life, showing a Zrathian commander. His voice was trembling, his eyes wide with terror. We faced the Void Stalker, he said. Our strongest weapons did nothing. It moves like a shadow, faster than anything we've seen. It consumes everything. Run. If you can still hear this, run. The recording ended abruptly, leaving the team in stunned silence. Back on the Vanguard, Ava replayed the message for the crew. Marcus frowned. That's it. They just gave up. Ava nodded slowly. They were terrified. But fear makes people blind. They weren't looking for a solution. She turned to the crew, her voice firm. We will. If it bleeds, we can kill it. And if it doesn't, her lips curled into a determined smile. We'll find a way to make it bleed. As the Vanguard continued its journey, they finally detected the Void Stalker. The ship's sensors picked up a massive energy signature ahead, unlike anything they had seen before. The stars in that sector seemed to vanish, swallowed by an all-encompassing darkness. Ava stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view. The ship's lights dimmed as the shadow loomed closer. There it is, she whispered. Her voice carried a mix of awe and resolve, the thing that made the galaxy kneel. The crew held their breath as the Void Stalker appeared, its massive form blocking out the stars. Ava clenched her fists. Let's see if it notices us. Humanity takes a stand. The darkness of space seemed to grow heavier as the Vanguard approached the Void Stalker's location. Unlike any ship or entity they had encountered before, it exuded an unnatural presence, a void that consumed light, sound, and even hope. For other species, this would be the end of the line. For humanity, it was just the beginning. Ava Reyes stood on the bridge, her fingers gripping the console as the Vanguard coasted closer. The crew was tense but silent, their focus absolute. The ship's sensors struggled to capture the entity fully. On their screens, the Void Stalker appeared as a massive shadow outlined by faint energy ripples. Report, Ava commanded, her voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Kim, stationed at the sensor array, shook his head. Still can't get a clear reading. Whatever it's made of, it's distorting our instruments. Mass is incalculable. Dr. Ilara Voss, the ship's xenobiologist, chimed in from her station. It's like it's not entirely in our dimension. Some of its structure exists here, but the rest, it's somewhere else. Ava's lips tightened into a thin line. Perfect. A shadow monster from another dimension. Just what I needed. The crew's fear was palpable, but Ava knew better than to let it spread. She had been chosen to command this mission, not just for her tactical brilliance, but for her ability to lead under pressure. She had faced impossible odds before. The key was always the same: stay calm, stay sharp, and never show doubt. Captain, Kim said, his voice quieter now. It's moving. Slowly, but it's heading toward us. Good, Ava replied. Her response caught the bridge off guard. Good, Marcus asked, his eyebrows raised. If it's moving toward us, it hasn't detected our cloaking system yet. That's an advantage. She turned to the communications officer. Get me a line to Fleet Command. We need reinforcements and a strategy. The hologram of Admiral Patel flickered to life once more. This time, her expression was grim. Report, Captain, Patel said. We've found it, Admiral. The Void Stalker is real, and it's bigger than we imagined. Our scans are incomplete, but we believe it's partially extradimensional. Ava paused. I don't think conventional tactics will work. Admiral Patel's jaw tightened. And yet you're still out there. What's your plan? Ava leaned forward, her tone resolute. We've seen it destroy fleets because they attacked blindly. That's not our style. We're going to study it, find its patterns, its weaknesses, and then, when we're ready, we'll strike. The Admiral hesitated. You understand the risks, Captain. If you engage without sufficient data, the Vanguard could end up like the others. Ava nodded. I understand. But humanity doesn't run from the unknown. If this thing is unstoppable, we need to know why. And if it isn't, her gaze hardened. We'll stop it." Patel sighed but gave a nod of approval. "You've got your orders. Keep me updated." The first encounter. With the conversation over, Eva turned back to her crew. "Bring us closer. Slowly. I want every sensor locked on that thing. I don't care if we have to invent new algorithms. Find something useful." The Vanguard crept forward, its engines humming softly. As they approached, the Void Stalker's energy fluctuations grew more erratic, almost like a heartbeat. "It's responding to our presence," Dr. Voss whispered, her eyes wide. "It knows we're here." The ship's lights flickered. A low, haunting vibration resonated through the hull, sending chills down the spines of everyone on board. "Shields up," Eva ordered immediately. "Full power to defensive systems." Before anyone could react further, a wave of energy surged from the Void Stalker. It wasn't an attack, at least not in the traditional sense. It was a pulse, invisible to the naked eye, that felt deep within their minds. Some crew members gripped their heads, groaning in pain. Others froze, their faces pale with terror. Eva felt it too, a creeping dread, like a voice whispering in her ear, telling her to give up, to run. But she gritted her teeth and forced herself to focus. "Marcus," she barked. "Countermeasures. Now." Marcus, fighting through the haze, activated the ship's experimental neural dampeners. The oppressive weight lifted slightly, allowing the crew to regain their senses. "It's trying to scare us," Eva said, her voice steady. "That's its first weapon. Fear." Dr. Voss nodded. "It's not just psychological. That pulse had a biological effect. It's designed to overwhelm and paralyze. That's why the other species couldn't fight back." "Well, we're not them," Eva replied sharply. "Kim, what did our sensors pick up during that pulse?" Kim checked his console, his fingers flying over the controls. The energy signature spiked. "We got a brief glimpse of its internal structure. There's something. Wait, there's a core. Deep. Then we adapt faster," Eva snapped. "Kim, fire everything we've got." The Vanguard's railguns roared to life, hurling hypersonic slugs into the Void Stalker's form. The impact sent ripples through the entity's dark mass, but it quickly reformed, unharmed. "Plasma lances, fire," Eva commanded. The Zrathian ships launched their remaining plasma shots. The beams sliced through the Void Stalker, causing a sharp, unnatural shriek to echo through the comms. For the first time, the creature hesitated. "It's reacting," Voss exclaimed. "It's vulnerable to high-energy weapons." "Keep up the pressure," Eva ordered. "Focus fire on its core. Don't let it recover." A fragile alliance. As the battle raged, the Zrathian commander's image appeared again. "Captain Rice, we cannot sustain this. Our energy reserves are critical. We'll be defenseless." Eva's gaze hardened. "If we stop now, we're all dead. Keep firing. You want to live. Fight for it." The Zrathian hesitated, then relayed the order to his fleet. Their plasma lances continued to fire, each shot chipping away at the Void Stalker's form. But the creature wasn't done. It shifted, its shadowy tendrils lashing out. One Zrathian ship was too slow to evade, and the tendrils wrapped around it, crushing it in an instant. The ship disintegrated, its remains consumed by the Void Stalker. Eva clenched her fists. "Voss, is there any way to disrupt its regeneration?" The scientist's fingers flew over her console. "It's drawing energy from the surrounding space. If we can overload its energy absorption, it might destabilize." "How?" Eva demanded. Voss hesitated, then her eyes lit up. "A massive surge. If we detonate our plasma reactor in close proximity, it could disrupt its form long enough for us to inflict real damage." "Detonate a reactor," Marcus interjected. "That's suicide." "It's a risk," Voss admitted. "But it's better than being slowly picked off." Making the choice, Ava turned to the Zrathian commander. "We have a plan, but it's dangerous. One of us will need to overload a reactor and detonate it near the Void Stalker." The Zrathian's many eyes widened. You can't be serious. That would destroy the ship. It's the only chance we have, Ava replied. If we don't, this thing will keep hunting us until we're gone. The Zrathian hesitated, fear warring with duty. Finally, he gave a slow nod. We will do it, for the survival of the galaxy. Ava's expression softened. Thank you. We'll cover you. Make it count. Cliffhanger. The Zrathian ship broke formation, charging toward the Void Stalker with its reactor primed for overload. The remaining fleet unleashed everything they had, desperately keeping the entity distracted. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Ava watched the scene unfold, her chest tight with tension. The Zrathian captain's final words echoed through the comms. May our sacrifice be remembered. The reactor detonated, releasing a blinding wave of energy. The Void Stalker recoiled, its form destabilizing, but it wasn't destroyed. Instead, it screeched louder, angrier, its massive shadow expanding. It's wounded, Voss said, her voice trembling. But it's not finished. Ava's jaw tightened. Neither are we. The Void Stalker surged toward the fleet, more aggressive than ever. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. The first strike. The explosion from the Zrathian reactor had bought the fleet precious moments, but it was clear the Void Stalker was far from defeated. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Havarays gripped the edge of her console, her eyes fixed on a creature's destabilizing form. The edges of its shadow pulsed erratically, as if it was reforming, but slower this time. Report, Ava barked. Dr. Ilara Voss was the first to respond. The explosion disrupted its energy absorption field. It's destabilized, but not critically. We've weakened it, but it's adapting again. We won't get another chance like that unless we act fast. Marcus Kim, seated at the tactical station, interjected. We don't have the firepower for a kill shot. Not with just us and these scrap heaps of Zrathian ships. Ava nodded grimly. Then we'll find another way. Humanity doesn't give up. A bold plan. The bridge was tense as Ava convened her senior officers in an emergency strategy session. A holographic projection of the Void Stalker flickered before them, its chaotic form shifting and pulsing. Voss, you mentioned something about its core last time, Ava began. Tell me there's a way to hit it. Voss leaned forward, her expression sharp. The core is the key. It's where it channels the energy it absorbs. If we can overload it directly, it might collapse entirely. Kim frowned. That's a big if. It's buried deep inside that thing. And we have no idea what kind of defenses it has around it. Ava turned to the Zrathian captain, who had joined the meeting via hologram. His insectoid features were still visibly shaken, but there was a glimmer of determination in his many eyes. Captain Velrix, Ava addressed him. Your people just made the ultimate sacrifice to give us this opportunity. I need to know if your ships have any remaining weapons or technology that could help us get to the core. Velrix hesitated before responding. We have one ship capable of delivering a focused energy strike, a prototype weapon, but it was never tested in combat. It requires precision targeting and a clear shot. If the Void Stalker is moving too fast or fully formed, it won't work. Ava's lips tightened. Then we'll make sure it gets a clear shot. Kim, plot an attack pattern. Voss, I want every available bit of data on that core. Weak spots, energy surges, anything. The assault begins. The fleet moved into position. The Vanguard took the lead, its hull gleaming under the faint starlight, while the remaining Zrathian ships formed a protective perimeter around their last functional warship, the one carrying the prototype weapon. As the Void Stalker's form began to stabilize, it emitted another pulse, sending ripples of dread through the fleet. But this time, the neural dampeners on the Vanguard were ready. Stay focused, Ava commanded. This thing feeds on fear, and we're not giving it anything to eat. The Void Stalker lashed out, its massive shadow tendrils reaching for the fleet. The Vanguard darted forward, drawing its attention. Railguns fired relentlessly, the hypersonic slugs tearing through the creature's form and disrupting its regeneration. "Kim, keep those tendrils occupied," Ava ordered. "Velrix, is your ship in position?" The Zrathian captain's voice came through the comms. "We need another 60 seconds to charge the weapon. Then we'll buy you 60 seconds." Ava replied. "All ships, focus fire on those tendrils. Do not let them touch Velrix's ship." The battle was chaos. The Void Stalker thrashed violently, its tendrils slicing through space like whips. One Zrathian ship was too slow to evade and was torn apart, its fragments disappearing into the void. But the rest of the fleet held their ground, their plasma and laser fire lighting up the darkness. Into the void. As the Zrathian weapon neared full charge, the Void Stalker shifted its focus. Its core began to glow faintly, a deep, malevolent red. The creature was preparing something, a final, devastating attack. "Voss," Ava shouted. "What's it doing?" Voss's face was pale as she analyzed the data. "It's concentrating its energy into a singular pulse. If it releases that, it could disable the entire fleet, or worse." Ava's mind raced. They were out of time. "Kim, bring us closer to the core. We'll draw its fire." Marcus turned to her in shock. "Closer? Are you serious? That thing could vaporize us." "Do you have a better idea?" Ava snapped. "Velrix needs a clear shot, and that pulse will wipe us all out if we don't stop it. Get us in there." The Vanguard surged forward, its engines blazing. As they approached the Void Stalker's core, the creature shifted its tendrils toward the ship, abandoning its attack on the rest of the fleet. "Shields at maximum," Marcus called out. The Vanguard weaved through the tendrils, its railguns firing continuously to keep them at bay. The ship shuddered as one tendril grazed its hull, sending sparks flying through the bridge. "Velrix, you better be ready," Ava shouted into the comms. "Charging complete," Velrix responded. "Firing now." The strike. The Zrathian warship fired its prototype weapon, a brilliant beam of energy that cut through the darkness and pierced the Void Stalker's core. The creature let out a deafening, otherworldly shriek as its form began to collapse in on itself. "We've hit it," Voss exclaimed. "The core is destabilizing." But the Void Stalker wasn't done. Its collapsing form lashed out in desperation, tendrils flailing wildly. One struck the Zrathian warship, destroying it in an instant. "No," Ava shouted, her fists clenching. The Void Stalker's core erupted in a final surge of energy, sending shockwaves through space. The Vanguard was hurled backward, its systems flickering. As the light faded, the creature's form was gone, replaced by a vast, eerie silence. Cliffhanger. On the bridge of the Vanguard, the crew slowly regained their footing. Ava surveyed the damage on her ship's monitors. The Zrathian's sacrifice had worked, but at what cost? "Is it gone?" Marcus asked, his voice uncertain. Voss shook her head, her expression grim. "Not gone. Not completely. It's retreating, regenerating. We bought ourselves time, but it's not over." Ava stared into the void where the creature had been, her jaw set. "Then we'll be ready. Next time, we're not just buying time. We're ending this." Far in the distance, faint energy ripples marked the Void Stalker's retreat. It wasn't finished, and neither was humanity. The Void Stalker strikes back. The Vanguard floated in the cold silence of space, surrounded by the wreckage of the Zrathian fleet. Inside, the atmosphere was somber. The battle had been won, but at a devastating cost. Humanity had struck the Void Stalker, an act no other species had dared. But the creature was far from defeated. It was retreating, yes, but there was a grim certainty aboard the ship. It would return, and it would be angrier than ever. Ava Reyes stood on the bridge, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. Faint energy ripples marked the direction of the Void Stalker's retreat, heading into the uncharted void. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the ship's damaged systems. "Captain," Marcus Kim finally said, breaking the quiet, "we're not equipped for another encounter. If that thing comes back before we're ready." "It will come back," Ava interrupted, her voice steel. "And when it does, we need to be the ones standing between it and the galaxy." She turned to Dr. Ilara Voss. "What do we know about its retreat? Why didn't it finish us off?" Voss adjusted her glasses, her expression thoughtful. "It's wounded, badly. The strike on its core destabilized it more than we anticipated. But it's not just retreating, it's regenerating. That thing isn't just alive, it's evolving." A haunting message. As repairs on the Vanguard began, a transmission came through the comms. It wasn't from Earth or any known ally. The distorted voice sounded alien, ancient, and desperate. "Human vessel, you must listen. It is not what it seems. The Void Stalker is the Harbinger. It will not stop. It will adapt. And when it returns, it will devour you all." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Ava stepped forward. "Who is this? Identify yourself." The voice hesitated. "We are the last of the Arcanists. Our civilization created it." Gasps echoed through the bridge. Ava's eyes narrowed. "You created it. Why? What is it?" The Arcanist's voice grew weaker, as if fading. "A weapon. A mistake. We sought to control fear, to make it our servant. But fear cannot be tamed. It consumes. It evolves." Before Ava could ask more, the transmission ended. A brief flicker of coordinates appeared on the navigation screen. A distant sector far beyond the galactic edge. Voss leaned forward. "Those coordinates, it might be where the Void Stalker was created." Ava straightened. "Then that's where we're going. The Stalker's revenge." Before the Vanguard could act, an alarm blared. The ship's long-range sensors picked up a disturbance, a massive energy surge, similar to the Void Stalker's signature. It wasn't retreating anymore. It was advancing, and it wasn't alone. "Multiple signatures," Marcus called out. "It's not just the Void Stalker, it's something else. Smaller, but just as hostile." On the holographic display, the shadows multiplied. The Void Stalker had created offspring, smaller, faster entities that pulsed with the same menacing energy. They were heading straight for the nearest human colony, Meridian Prime. "They're targeting civilians," Voss said, her voice shaking. "This isn't just an attack, it's a hunt." Ava clenched her fists. "Set a course for Meridian Prime. We're intercepting." A desperate defense. The Vanguard arrived at Meridian Prime just as the shadows descended. The colony's defenses were woefully inadequate. Automated turrets and a few outdated patrol ships. Civilians were evacuating, but the process was slow. The Voidlings, as the crew quickly dubbed the smaller entities, moved like predatory fish, darting through the colony's defenses with terrifying speed. "Battle stations," Ava shouted. "Focus fire on the Voidlings. We can't let them reach the transports." The Vanguard's railguns roared to life, tearing through the Voidlings with pinpoint precision. One by one, the smaller creatures fell, but they fought back fiercely. Tendrils of shadow lashed out, slamming into the ship's shields and rocking the crew. "Shields at 40%, Marcus reported. "Hold the line," Ava commanded. In the chaos, a larger shadow loomed. The Void Stalker itself. It hadn't fully regenerated, but its presence alone was enough to send waves of dread through the colony. Its tendrils reached out, wrapping around one of the evacuation ships. "They're targeting the evacuees," Voss shouted. Ava's mind raced. The Void Stalker was smarter now, more strategic. It wasn't just attacking, it was breaking their morale. "Kim, bring us around. Target the tendrils. Full power to weapons." The Vanguard unleashed a barrage of fire, severing the tendrils and freeing the transport. The Void Stalker recoiled, but its energy surged, signaling another pulse. "Brace yourselves," Ava shouted. The pulse hit, and the bridge was bathed in red light as systems flickered. Crew members staggered, but the Vanguard's dampeners held. Barely. "We can't keep this up," Marcus said, his voice grim. "That thing's learning. It's stronger than before." The turning point. Just as it seemed the battle was lost, a new fleet appeared on the horizon. Sleek ships with glowing blue engines, Valorian cruisers, descended into the fray. Their leader, a tall, crystalline figure, hailed the vanguard. "Human ship," the Valorian commander said, his voice resonant, "we received your call. We fight with you now." The combined firepower of the vanguard and the Valorian fleet turned the tide. Together, they pushed back the voidlings, forcing the Void Stalker to retreat once more, but the victory was far from complete. As the last of the voidlings fell, Ava stood on the bridge, her expression grim. "We've bought time," she said, "but it's not enough. That thing's evolving faster than we can adapt." Voss stepped forward. "The Arcanist coordinates. They might hold the key. If we can learn how it was created, maybe we can learn how to destroy it." Ava nodded. "Set a course for the Arcanist ruins. This ends where it began." Cliffhanger. As the vanguard prepared to leave, another transmission came through. It was faint, almost a whisper, but unmistakably alien. "Humanity, your defiance is admirable, but you cannot stop what is coming. Fear will consume all, starting with you." Ava's gaze hardened. "Let it come. We'll be ready." Far behind them, in the silent void, the Void Stalker's form shimmered, growing darker, stronger. It wasn't just a monster anymore. It was learning, evolving, preparing for its final strike. The final plan. The vanguard raced through uncharted space, the Arcanist coordinates locked into the ship's navigation. Every member of the crew knew the stakes. The Void Stalker was evolving faster than they could adapt, and humanity's best chance to stop it lay in uncovering the secrets of its origin. The galaxy's survival depended on what they would find at the ruins of the Arcanist civilization. Captain Ava Reyes stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the holographic star map. The tension in the room was palpable. Every second brought them closer to answers, or disaster. "ETA to the Arcanist system?" Ava asked. Marcus Kim, her first officer, glanced at his console. 10 minutes, Captain. Long-range scans show minimal activity in the area. Whatever's out there, it's quiet." "Too quiet," Dr. Ilara Voss added. She was seated at her station, poring over the faint data from the Arcanist transmission. "The Arcanist said they created the Void Stalker. If they left something behind, it's either dead or, worse." Arrival at the ruins. The Arcanist system was a graveyard. The vanguard emerged from hyperspace into a field of shattered planets and debris. Enormous rings of rock and metal orbited a dying star, remnants of a once great civilization. The ruins were ancient but eerily preserved, as if frozen in time. "Scans?" Ava asked. Kim studied his console. Massive energy readings coming from the core of the largest fragment. "It looks like a research station, intact, but dormant." "Dormant doesn't mean safe," Ava said. "Prepare a boarding team. We're going in." The forgotten station. Ava led the boarding party herself, accompanied by Marcus, Voss, and a squad of Marines. They approached the station in a small shuttle, its hull illuminated by the eerie blue glow of the station's energy field. As they docked, the airlock hissed open, revealing a long, dark corridor. The walls were covered in alien script, pulsating faintly with light. Voss studied them as they walked. "This is incredible. These symbols, they're instructions, warnings, and..." She paused, her eyes widening. "Schematics. Schematics for what?" Ava asked. Voss ran her hand over the symbols, her voice hushed. "The Void Stalker. This station isn't just where it was created, it's where they built it. The origin of fear." The teen reached the station's central chamber, a massive, domed room with a glowing sphere at its center. It pulsed rhythmically, casting long shadows on the walls. Surrounding the sphere were holographic displays, flickering to life as the humans approached. A voice, ancient and mechanical, echoed through the chamber. Arcanist Research Archive activated. Accessing project. Sovereign fear. The holograms displayed scenes of the Void Stalker's creation. The Arcanist had engineered it as the ultimate weapon, a living entity designed to wield fear as a tool of control. It was meant to subjugate rebellious species, to crush opposition without firing a single shot, but something had gone wrong. They gave it too much autonomy, Voss explained, her voice filled with awe and dread. It learned. It evolved beyond their control. One hologram showed the Void Stalker turning on its creators, consuming them and their technology. Another revealed the core, a massive crystalline structure deep within the creature. The core wasn't just its power source, it was its mind, its essence. If we destroy the core, Voss said, we destroy the Void Stalker. The plan comes together. The team returned to the Vanguard. The knowledge from the station burned into their minds. On the bridge, Ava addressed her officers and the remaining fleet. We know how to stop it, she began. The core is its brain. Destroy it, and the Void Stalker dies. But we'll only get one shot. Once it realizes what we're doing, it'll adapt. Kim folded his arms. And how do we even get close enough? The thing almost killed us last time. Ava smirked. By using its greatest strength against it, fear. The decoy maneuver. The plan was as bold as it was dangerous. The Vanguard would act as bait, drawing the Void Stalker into a trap. Meanwhile, a team aboard a smaller, stealth-equipped vessel would infiltrate the creature's shadowy mass and deliver a high-energy payload directly to its core. Who's leading the infiltration team? Kim asked, though he already knew the answer. Ava stepped forward. I am. The bridge fell silent. Marcus frowned. Captain, if something goes wrong. If something goes wrong, you'll finish the job, Ava interrupted. This isn't just about humanity. It's about the galaxy. If we fail, there's no second chance. The final approach. The fleet gathered at the designated coordinates, ready for the showdown. The Void Stalker's energy signature loomed on the sensors, growing larger with each passing second. It was coming, and it was angry. Here we go, Ava muttered. All ships, engage. The battle erupted in a blaze of light and fire. The Void Stalker lashed out with its tendrils, tearing through smaller ships with ease. The Vanguard led the charge, its weapons blazing, drawing the creature's attention. Meanwhile, the infiltration team launched from the Vanguard in a cloaked shuttle. Ava piloted the vessel with precision, weaving through the chaos as they approached the Void Stalker's core. The creature's form twisted and writhed, its shadow tendrils reaching for the ship. Stay steady, Ava told her team. We're almost there. Cliffhanger. The shuttle breached the Void Stalker's shadowy surface, entering a labyrinth of darkness and energy. The core pulsed ahead, a massive crystalline structure glowing with malevolent light. We've got a visual on the core, Ava said, arming the payload. Just as they prepared to deploy the device, the shuttle's systems flickered. The shadows around them shifted, forming into humanoid shapes, manifestations of the Void Stalker's will. It knows we're here, Voss whispered. Ava gripped the controls, her eyes blazing with determination. Let it come. We're finishing this. Outside, the Void Stalker let out an ear-splitting screech, its form expanding as it prepared a final, catastrophic attack on the fleet. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Victory or extinction. The Vanguard's infiltration team was deep inside the Void Stalker's shadowy form. The crystalline core loomed ahead, glowing with a malevolent energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Outside, the battle raged as the remaining fleet held the creature's attention. The galaxy's fate rested on one final act of defiance. Status report. Ava Rice barked, her hand steady on the controls of the stealth shuttle. Around her, the team worked frantically to prepare the high-energy payload. Dr. Ilara Voss, seated at the makeshift command console, typed furiously. The core is destabilizing. It's drawing power from the surrounding space to prepare a massive energy burst. If it releases that, it'll wipe out the fleet, and probably half this sector. Ava clenched her jaw. Then we take it out first. The core's defense. As the shuttle closed in on the core, the Void Stalker responded. The shadows around the team solidified into humanoid figures, twisted, grotesque shapes that flickered between physical and ethereal. They moved with eerie precision, blocking the path to the core. Hostiles incoming. Marcus Kim called out from the gunner station. He opened fire, energy bolts slicing through the figures. Some dissipated instantly, but others reformed, relentless in their attack. They're projections of the Void Stalker's will, Voss shouted over the chaos. It's trying to protect itself. Well, it's doing a hell of a job, Marcus muttered, firing again. Ava maneuvered the shuttle sharply, dodging an incoming tendril of shadow that slammed into a nearby wall, sending shockwaves through the vessel. We need to push through. Voss, is the payload ready? Almost, Voss said, sweat beading on her forehead. We need 60 more seconds. The fleet's sacrifice. Outside, the fleet fought valiantly to keep the Void Stalker distracted. The Valorian cruisers and remaining Zrathian ships worked in unison, their weapons tearing through the Void Stalker's tendrils. But the creature was relentless. For every tendril severed, 2 more seemed to grow in its place. Admiral Zara Patel's hologram flickered on the Vanguard's bridge. We can't hold this much longer, Captain Rice. We need that core destroyed, or we're finished. We're working on it, Ava replied through gritted teeth. Just hold on a little longer. The Valorian commander's voice cut in. Our ships cannot sustain this damage. But we will not retreat. If we fall, humanity must succeed. The final push. Inside the Void Stalker, the shuttle reached the core chamber. The crystalline structure glowed brighter, sending waves of energy outward. The humanoid projections swarmed the shuttle, tearing at its hull. Shields failing. Marcus shouted. Ava didn't hesitate. Everyone, suit up. We're going in. The team donned their exosuits and stepped out into the hostile environment of the core chamber. The ground beneath them was unstable, shifting like liquid shadow. The core loomed above, crackling with energy. Plant the payload, Ava commanded. Voss and Marcus moved quickly, securing the device at the base of the core. The humanoid projections attacked relentlessly. One slashed at Ava's suit, but she countered with her plasma blade, the weapon slicing through the shadowy figure. Cover them, she shouted to the Marines, who fired at the oncoming swarm. Voss's voice rang out. Payload armed. 10-second countdown. The Void Stalker's last stand. As the countdown began, the Void Stalker unleashed its final defense. The shadows thickened, and the core began to pulsate violently, sending shockwaves through the chamber. The humanoid projections multiplied, their attacks growing more ferocious. We need to move, Marcus yelled, firing at the nearest projection. Not yet, Ava said, her eyes locked on the core. If we leave now, it might stabilize. We stay until detonation. The team held their ground, fighting off the projections as the countdown ticked toward 0. Detonation. The payload detonated in a blinding flash of energy. The core shattered, sending fragments flying through the chamber. The Void Stalker let out a deafening screech, its form convulsing violently. The humanoid projections dissolved into nothingness, and the shadows began to collapse inward. Go, 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 Ava shouted, leading the team back to the shuttle. The ship's engines roared to life as they sped out of the collapsing chamber. Behind them, the Void Stalker's massive form imploded, its tendrils retracting and disintegrating. The once indomitable creature was no more. Aftermath. The Vanguard emerged from the Void Stalker just as its remains disintegrated into harmless particles, scattering across the void. The fleet outside let out collective cheers, their exhausted crews celebrating the impossible victory. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Ava stood silently, watching the debris field where the Void Stalker had once been. The cost had been immense, countless lives lost, entire fleets destroyed. But humanity and its allies had won. Voss approached her, a faint smile on her face. "It's over." Ava nodded. "For now. But we know what's out there. We know what we're capable of. And we know how to fight back." The Valorian commander's hologram appeared on the console. "Your species has done what we believed impossible. Humanity has proven its worth as a defender of this galaxy." Ava met his gaze. "We're not just defending humanity. We're defending all of us." Epilogue. As the fleet prepared to return home, a faint signal came through the Vanguard's comms. It was garbled, distorted, but unmistakably from deep space. "We are not the only ones," the message said. The Void Stalker was just the beginning. Ava turned toward the screen, her expression resolute. "Then we'll be ready." The stars outside shimmered, vast and endless. Humanity had faced fear and won, but the galaxy was far from safe.